Hi there, welcome to Lordrick's Room. My name is Lordrick. A couple of weeks back, I did an April Fool's video on extracurricular activities you need to have in order to get into top colleges. Obviously, that video was a joke, but this time around, I want to share some more realistic advice that you can actually apply to your own life. And since school is still remote for the most part for the time being, as of the recording of this video, I think it would be most fitting to go over some solid at-home extracurricular activities. And honestly, even when things do go back to being mostly in person, I know there are gonna be a lot of people who would still rather do things from the comfort of their own homes. I think the past year has really shifted more emphasis onto activities that don't require other people immediately around you. And I think that this is something that'll still be relevant moving forward. So hopefully this information will still be applicable even after things go back to how they used to be. So today we'll be going over 5 broader categories of at-home extracurricular activities that you can do right now. Yes, right now. You can do it right now. So after you watch this video, you better get to it. I'll be watching you. And I know that everyone has varying interests, so it wouldn't make sense for me to recommend very specific activities. Like, I could tell you to learn how to code and make an app or something, but if you want to go into English or some type of humanities, coding isn't really going to be super relevant. But since I'll be covering categories of activities instead of individual categories, you'll be able to take away something from each group and apply it to your life right now. These are very loosely ranked in order of coolness, so the later activities on this list are going to be the cooler ones. Of course, that's just my opinion, but if you are interested, be sure to watch until the end. So, yeah. Transition! The first activity we have is your usual school-based activities. This encompasses all of the things you would have been doing at school back in the before times, but now have to do remotely. So for whatever clubs you're a part of, you can continue attending virtual meetings because even though virtual clubs are really not the same as being in person, a lot of the things you'd be doing in person anyways are things that you could honestly be doing virtually. Most of the clubs I've been a part of mostly involve doing work online anyways, so might as well go one step further and make the whole thing online. Unless you're doing something more physical that requires being with other people physically, there isn't too much difference here between being in person versus online. And you could also start your own club. A lot of interest-based clubs can totally be run online, and since you don't have to go through the whole process of reserving a room after school and all that, you could argue that starting a club is a lot easier these days than it used to be. It's also easier to be more accessible to more of the student body since you can fit basically an unlimited number of people into a video call, and since most students are going to be online anyways. Activities directly related to your school are the kinds of things you're most likely to already be doing anyway, since they are the easiest to get involved with. But, I figured I'd give it a place on this list anyways just to drive that point home. But again, since they can also be considered more common or basic, you might be more interested in some of the other categories on this list, especially if you want to stand out in college admissions and whatnot. So the next category of at-home activity we have is virtual services. Given that we've been virtual for the past year, a lot of things have been able to adapt decently well to being not in person. For example, a lot of new remote opportunities have sort of just sprung up in the past year. There are a lot of new jobs that you can do remotely, even as a high schooler. For example, being a tutor is one kind of part-time job that works especially well in the online format, given that most of us are taking classes on Zoom anyways. Obviously, you can't do something like working retail while at home, but there are a number of common jobs that high schoolers typically have that can be done from home. In addition to working a job, you could also try to find places where you could volunteer or intern from home. Volunteering and interning are basically the same thing, especially when that internship is unpaid. There are a lot of places where you can do typical intern work from home, since a lot of the work you would typically be doing as an intern is done online anyways. This is a bit easier than trying to find a job these days, because it's like doing the same work as a job, but you're just not getting paid unless you're doing a paid internship. In that case, it's not like this example at all. So I'm sure there are plenty of places that would be happy to get people that they can pay in experience rather than money. Anyway, research. I guess research is something that every high schooler is trying to do these days. I didn't do any research myself back when I was in high school because honestly, I didn't even really know that that was a thing. But many research opportunities that would have been available for high schoolers have moved online, so you could try applying for these opportunities. I don't really know too much about doing research as a high schooler or in general, so I can't be of too much help there, but I thought I'd put it out there for those of you who are interested. In general, I'd say that performing these kinds of virtual services, whether you want to volunteer or do research or whatever, is a lot more accessible than doing them in person, because you can basically apply to anywhere in the world as opposed to wherever you can feasibly commute to if it was in person. Moving along, our next category is learning a skill. This is something that I think is a lot more accessible to people than trying to get a job or an internship or whatever, and that's because you don't have to talk to other people to get started. All you really need to get started is access to the internet, which you would have if you're watching this video right now. Taking the time to sort of cultivate a skill is a really great gateway into a lot of other fun and exciting things that can really take you a long way. For example, you could learn a new language. As you may know, I am quite fond of learning foreign languages so that I can, talk to more people and to consume media in other languages. It's actually so I can just watch anime and K-dramas. There's actually a spot on the Common app where you list all the languages you speak, and if you could say that you speak 4 languages, I think that would be pretty neat. You could also learn other things like how to code or how to play an instrument or really anything, And from there, you can really grow in a lot of different directions. If you want to go into a STEM field, learning how to code can definitely be a plus. And from there, you can learn how to make an app, a video game, a robot. I don't really know that much about coding. But the really great thing about exploring these kinds of things on your own is that you can really dive as deeply as you want. You can find YouTube videos that will teach you literally anything. So as long as you have access to the internet, you can basically learn anything you want. And if you want to push yourself even further, you can also find ways to intersect these skills with typically unrelated fields. If you're interested in music and you decide to develop your music skills, travel down the music route, you could make songs about academic topics, kind of like They Might Be Giants. That honestly might not be the greatest example, but the point is that developing skills that you're interested in gives you the opportunity to combine them in unique ways, which can really help you to stand out. Now, our fourth activity is what I'd like to call creative output. This is kind of similar to what other people call passion projects, I guess. This is basically where you take the skills that you've learned and apply them in more tangible ways. Because, you have these skills that you've built up, but they're not something that you can directly show on their own. So, using your skills to create some creative output gives you stuff that you can use to show off your skills. This can involve things like writing a book, writing a song, coding an app, making art, and a number of different things. And as you can see, this is a great way for you to take a skill and turn it into an actual activity that you can write down on your extracurricular activities list. And depending on how you go about things and how versatile your hobbies are, you might even be able to split it into multiple activities. For example, if your skill is doing stuff with some form of art, you could make art that you can submit for an AP art class, or as part of an actual art portfolio that you submit to schools. This is the most direct way of applying those skills, at least that I can think of, but there are definitely plenty of other avenues that you can also explore. Like, you could start an art class where you teach younger students how to paint, or you could partner up with like a STEM person or whatever and help them add art to their app or video game or whatever. Or you could team up with a business minded person and help their business not be ugly. So there are a lot of ways to go about things, which leaves you with a lot of opportunities for doing stuff you enjoy without, even having to leave your room. Such as the final category of at-home extracurricular activity, content creation. I know a lot of people on YouTube will tell you to start a YouTube channel, so I'll say it too. Start a YouTube channel. But it doesn't have to be just a YouTube channel. You could also make a podcast or become a streamer. Those three are what I'd recommend the most because blogs are kinda useless and boring in my opinion, and becoming a TikToker doesn't have as much substance since TikTok is so oversaturated. But being a YouTuber, podcaster, or streamer are what I consider to be the most impressive forms of digital content creation, but they are also the hardest to break into. But if you can find success here, that'll definitely be big for you. But you may be thinking that you don't know what you would even make content about, but I can assure you that you already have things that you can talk about right now. For example, you could start making videos to show off your different hobbies. If you are really big into history and want to become a history major, starting a YouTube channel where you go over different points in history can definitely be a solid activity. And it doesn't even have to be strictly academic related because there are communities for literally everything on YouTube, and the world of podcast is also pretty similar as with the world of streaming. Like, if you can grow a huge following on YouTube from making videos about different kinds of vlogs, I think anything is possible. I would say that starting a podcast is the most professional looking form of content creation. I think saying that you're a YouTuber or a streamer doesn't seem as legitimate as being a podcaster, especially among older demographics. But I do think this is changing as time goes on, so if you can grow a significant following as a content creator, that is a valid activity. I would give advice on how to get started, but I am honestly still figuring things out myself. I guess all I can say is to get started as soon as possible and throw out as much as you can and see what sticks. Now I've planted the seeds of inspiration in all your little noggins, so it's up to you guys to water them. Despite the limitations of being in a remote learning environment, there has been a big push towards virtual and remote activities that is likely here to stay. But luckily, there are basically an infinite number of things you can do to stay involved. But while extracurricular activities do play an important factor in college admissions, you should focus your time and effort into activities that you enjoy and find fulfilling. As I've said before, it matters less what you do specifically than how you present it and what you are able to take away from it. As a great thinker once said, "It matters not what you do, but what you do with what you've done for others." Please do not do an activity just because you think it will look good for college admissions. With so many different paths you can take, you can be successful and impress yourself and others through activities that you personally truly enjoy. And the best part is that you can start right after you watch this video, right where you are. So I'm looking forward to see what you guys are able to come up with. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye!